All right, we're doing this. We're doing this.
Hello, hello.
So, welcome to Tunnel Talk, Part 8. Today, we're going to be talking about all kinds of things like the history of the humanoids, Mars, Venus, tournament on Mars. And then, if we have time, we're going to get into Atlantis and the pyramids and kind of go from there. All right?
Okay, to start off, my knowledge of the universe comes directly from the library, which I'm able to directly feed into, and I've gotten a vast picture on what the history was and kind of what we've done to ourselves over and over again. And, it's really weird being able to see these patterns. Like, Mars, from my understanding, was an all male clone race that was going through a lot. Uh, Going through a lot, but freaking their technology would end up growing to sufficient to ours, and they can only do so much. On their planet, they're very stubborn, very warlike, and they were slowly killing themselves off in their environment. Some of the ancients, some of these higher dimensional beings, able to pretty much say I have God power because they're in multiple dimensions at once, being able to take complete control and grasp of understanding a situation and using it to their advantage, being older souls and have the knowledge of such with the skill and experience needed to create these things. The ancients have done a lot of things. These beings are the original sentient energies. Time doesn't exist, but there is an order of events. If that makes any sense to you.
Yeah, it's fascinating talking about the ancients and how they were the original beings. And the ancients are souls. They've been kind of moved through different galaxies as well, right? Moved through time and different galaxies.
Time doesn't exist to them. They're constantly balls of light. They're pure energy. That's one of numerous existences that either were directly connected to, but that one was closer to the source of light. There's a source of light, there's a source of dark, there's a source of balance, and there's a source of all. And the funny thing is, all paths lead to the same. It's very strange how the spirals interlay and twist, and it, it's a beautiful pattern. But these energies were just that. They ended up figuring out how to create matter using energy and just different polarizations of that to actually condense it down and start creating the first matter. Thus, the ones and zeros of the base universe, using that knowledge to then slowly create and design more and more things. Like two people having a competition to build the better video game character. You keep battling your two monsters over and over again. Creates different patterns, and then from what spins off of that, creates different races and thereforth through this weird, strange balance that just intertwines all geometrically. Sorry, my tag is killing. Over and over again. That's the first cycle of the universe, the age of darkness, where a lot of these spiritual eldritch horrors, even though a lot of them are pure good, to gaze at them would be too much for the mortal eye because of just how natural in the forming their shapes truly are. And fucking the universe is a beautiful thing, but a scary thing too. Being able to go back and see each layer actually starts to become a curse.
Okay, so but you're saying that it's all happening simultaneously
Not quite.
because there is no time. You said that there is no time. So
For them,
like,
time is perception. These energies are going into a vessel, dying, coming back, going. there's no time for them, but time is within this. Each of these vessels is living symbiotically with this energy. One cannot exist without the other.
No, that makes total sense. That makes total sense. There's a lot of ancients here today, isn't there? On in this world right now,
Every
isn't
so
there?
often during like planetary alignments and major astrological events and things like that, a lot of the time the ancients will come back for either galactic threat or another game, and their games can get very, very deadly. I mean, it destroyed Mars. Imagine what happens when you got beings that are pretty much ascended into godhood mode mentally and able to literally form reality around them because they are just these multi-dimensional being spots simultaneously knowing how to use it and using it to control, battling each other to see who's the strongest of the strong, to figure out who wins something, a prize, because they have nothing better to do with these puppets, these vessels, to try to occupy their time, so to speak, creating new
Oh my God.
experiences over and over again, living life to life, trying to wipe it sometimes. Sometimes it's just stuck upon. It just depends on how the energy affects said memories in connection to the people you're around. So you take somebody that's been in one situation entirely energy wise, and then a major shift happens for the first time in that soul's life, so to speak. It would be completely unbalanced until it found its new routine within both sides as it continues to spin and the natural polarities of things.
Um, is there such thing as the golden age? I mean, we've heard about it, and it's every so many years, the universe cycles back through the galactic plane, right? And then so you have more energy coming from the central sun. Is that a time of enlightenment throughout history? Is that something true? Is that when certain ancients come, others leave, or what do we know about the golden age?
Well, the golden age is, as you've been saying it, is yes, it is a cycle that's happened numerous times over and over again. It happened back in Atlantis, was one of the last major shifts, and that's when the Martians actually came here. A good chunk of them, survivors that came here as refugees, their planet fucked because after the tournament there was a nuclear war on their
Well,
planet. It
now
destroyed the
tell us about the tournament at Mars. Tell us about Mars, and then go into the tournament.
Mars, pretty much a Gemtech version of Egypt that has space travel. They have
Whoa.
light bulbs. They use Gemtech, which is a
What do you mean,
technology
GEM,
a lot of people
GEM?
understand. Yeah, gem, like geodes. You align them with the appropriate energies and put them in certain positions on ley lines, and they can actually create power sources for and other things. Gemtech can actually be used for space travel if you get the right one created with an outside power drive, but still.
That's the more that we do these tunnel talk series, the more I kind of start understanding it, because I kind of need to see it in my head. And so you're saying that Mars was a sort of like Egypt, where they used these gem. It was gem, and it was a technology that they used with like gems and geodes and crystals. And then what they did, they had ley lines and things like that, or what did they use the gem, the gem tech? What exactly was that?
They use that to create heat for their homes, lights. They had actual full working systems. They had plumbing systems. I mean, it pretty much kind of like space Egyptian a little bit. Okay,
Yeah.
they were good with weapons. They were good at destruction. Um, and yeah, literally totalitarian type government in control, loved their gladiators, decided to solve problems within the community within said way.
Okay, and then so the Are you trying to say that the refugees, so Mars had some tournaments, and tell us about those tournaments.
Well, it'd be literally battles to the death with people that had the ability to break reality. If you could warp that reality, they wanted to see which of these quote unquote demigods was the true. And they had them literally battle to the death. Winner takes all. To either death or give up. And if it's give up, it's pride and exile in that particular game.
And then what happened to Mars? You said there was wars after that?
Well, no, just some of the abilities, just the combat between these beings able to warp reality within that space did a huge chunk of damage to the atmosphere alone. I mean, some of those energy blasts went straight through stone, craters.
Wow. And then, so what happened? Did they destroy their world, or? And you said they showed up here as refugees, and they kind of were those
That
the first
it was
Egyptians?
that nuclear war, okay. And the nuclear war ended up breaking out over the events of the tournament. Somebody felt it was rigged, and they ended up causing a rebellion amongst themselves and deciding to go on nuclear war over pretty much a bet.
So they were able to escape before that, right?
Well, no, some did. I mean, some were off calling, little places. Is it just kind of the same? There's a lot of our pyramids came from numerous species, actually. They originally came from a very warlike cat race is one of them. They were also in league with a literal dog race. And I know this sounds crazy as hell, but they're actual humanoids. Reptiloids exist. You have numerous forms of humanoid in all kinds of shapes and sizes.
So who was the cat race that you just discussed?
I don't know their name, but from my understanding is they're kind of like America, but as a species.
Okay, but where'd they come from?
I believe they're actually near Orion's belt.
Were those the Lyrans or the Lyrans?
Might be. I don't know. I think that's the wrong species.
Okay.
I think they're near them, but they're not quite them, or that's their enemy. I can't. I've been in contact with some of them for parts of my life, and I don't want to push or anything, but
No. I've kind of seen them in the astral realm in some visions. They just showed up, like they're really tall. And then there's dog races. Now, are you, when you talk about the cat races and the dog races, are you talking about were they having war games amongst themselves, or are those the species that were refugees here?
the irony is, the old sayings are true. They were fighting like cats and dogs, even though they were somewhat symbiotic in their relationship of trade and different goods. They always fought like cats and dogs. Sometimes they'd get along, but for the most part, one swatting the other here and there. Actually, two planets that had those species around Saturn's belts. What happens when they end up collapsing into each other?
Yeah, that's pretty crazy. What about Venus?
It was a ball of gas that was being mined, and there was two planets that were orbiting each other. And the planets were getting progressively closer to each other, to a point where they got really scared and they decided to all go down as quickly as possible.
And so we have a lot of refugees here from a lot of. How come here? Why did they end up here?
This is a private sector. This is a private sector that's supposed to be a ref. This is supposed to be a what are they called? When you have the animals go to the place and
Yeah, a sanctuary.
this is supposed to be somewhat of a sanctuary, but instead it's a sanctuary for people to do sick experiments on shit, pretty much. It's like this species is coming in doing this experiment or this experiment or this experiment. We're not killing them. We're not changing their culture. We're just doing our research and getting what we want. Wouldn't that technically be a type of poaching, in a sense, if that is the case? I
Yeah.
mean,
What was Venus like?
Venus, a lot of plants. I believe there still is. They're just a different color. I mean,
What are the colors there? Do you know?
no, all I know is that they lived in like bubbles. And it was like little forested bubbles, perfect atmosphere for the growth of these plants. And they would just live in peace with them in these little protected little bubbles.
Wow, these little like these climate controlled bubbles where they had planets or plants, and the Venus, the what did they look like? What did the Venus people look like?
Kind of like Amazonians. Best way to describe it.
Kind of tall and like
More
what do you mean, like a brown color?
muscular.
Or?
Even though they were very intelligent, they came from a place that was much more violent than Earth. Let's just put it that way. Yes, places like that do exist. There's so many planets out there, it's kind of ridiculous. I couldn't tell you the name of every species, but I could pretty much give you a rundown of whichever one frickin'.
Yeah, there's planes or whatever going above us, so it's always kind of annoying. All these outside noises, but so then did Venus, like, did they have wars there, or and then did they lose their planet also, or did they just?
They're the ones that I have the least information on, to be honest. Uh, I just know of the generalized designs of how they got their structures. Also, again, using gem tech, livable structures. They could have came from somewhere else and been living there, and you know, I don't even freaking know, but so many damn species. You got a whole entire galactic empire out there. You got space cops stopping people from coming through. They'll come to Earth every once in a blue moon to try to catch a major criminal that tries to escape, thinking, "Oh, if they go here, they'll be safe," because we're not allowed to know about out there. So how could they ever be found? It's actually more tempting than a lot of people think. This is like the Brazil of that, you know. Hey, no, let's go there. No, you don't exist, man. You know.
So there's actually space cops preventing them from coming in here, right? Are those our guys, or is that Federation that are actually keeping us separated from them?
There is a galactic federation trying to preserve peace. There is a conglomerate of reptiloids and some of their allies who believe Earth belongs to them because of similarized groupings of reptiloids. But just because a reptiloid comes from a planet doesn't mean that it's exactly going to cause the same. It's not the same. A reptiloid on one planet to where that planet's idea of a reptile is warm-blooded versus one of ours, which is cold-blooded, which both exist simultaneously. They're both reptiloids. They just grew evolutionary-wise differently based off of the different, make of their planet.
So what was the first being here? The very, very, very first being on the planet Earth? What was it?
On this planet, the very first beings on this planet were the reptiloids, a very specific species of reptiloids. In fact, all humanoids on Earth are refugees. Every single humanoid on planet, they're not native to this. There's been humanoids that have come out afterwards. I mean, there's been humanoids that were made here, so in a way they're native, but the DNA comes from something outsourced. Back before people realized what this was, it was pretty much, ooh, here's some materials for a quick fix. Here, take this DNA and make me a couple slaves real quick. They tried to do that. The slaves got big and angry. They came back and went, oh, squash. Alrighty then, let's do this again, but make it to where we have more control and they're a little smaller.
They kept dumbing them down.
Actually, in some cases, making them more intelligent, but they would get to their heads, and they tried a lot of different things. I mean, the world's been destroyed in numerous ways. I mean, you kind of have to look at all media and things to get the full effect. And even then, you got to boil out a lot of the shit.
Now, these reptiloids, do they have a conscience that comes from the creator, Zero, as well?
Yeah. Well, Zero is creation and destruction. It is the energy which all things are able to both exist and be destroyed, because without it, you can't have either. Neither of those even exist as a concept without that initial energy condensing itself down and getting to the raw control, the God element, as they say. It's without that you can't have the rest. Because even just the wavelengths of that creates everything else.
What does a reptiloid look like, and where does it live?
Reptiloid it's a reptilian. A reptiloid it's for the most part got 2 legs, 2 arms, a tail, scaly all over, a jaw, and a little bit bigger than your average human, dependent on species. They're what evolved from the dinosaurs and a certain strain of them. And then after Mars, they decided to attack. They used a particular device on what is now the Gulf of Mexico, and that was a Mars bomb. It only took one, and bye-bye most of the dinosaurs. They came in, colonized as quickly as they could.
Wow.
Well, about at the same time, some of the species connected with the Atlanteans were coming back from a vacation out to somewhere else. Pyramids are a tricky time because a lot of them were used to re-energize some of these ships coming in. They wanted to keep it hush and small. Here's our little vacation planet. How are things done while we were gone? These alien beings that were some of the pharaohs back in the day that they try to keep hidden in some of their bloodlines. It's still sacred. You can't even see them or talk about them in some countries because those beings exist. It's a strange way to view and go about things.
What about the Titans? I know we've been wanting to talk about the Titans.
Well, when I talk about a Titan, I'm talking about a power level, just like I view the term God or demigod or really even ancient as a power level. It's in scaling. I just use that to go, okay, that's how much of the power of the universe they have at their fingertips. As a reference, Zero would be, we're doomed. You're in control. A demigod would be, okay, you're an annoyance, but you can't force me to do shit. Or you can just kill me. Fuck off. It's a difference in scale and power. Somebody that maybe has like a base power level is, I'm angry and I can change it to where this happens, or I manifest this to happen. It's just all on that give and take.
So when the ancients just started branching out and branching out, they did they lose their power? I mean, as they went through these different manifestations of reality, did they eventually lose their power, or are the ancients, only specific ones, and they retain their power to this day?
No, they don't retain their power. It's actually rare for one to even be complete enough to have memory. For the most part, they break their energy down into multiple pieces and parts, and then they just put it in different beings, different vessels. Here, 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 and here. Like this is this, and this is this, because I need to work on both of these things to try to make my soul better, because that's what I want to do. Type of situation. But they don't realize that's happening outside of their physical lifetime and what they're experiencing, as well as what this other is experiencing, even though you're the same soul, without ever realizing you are directly connected.
That makes a lot of sense to me, because we're all like fractured, and we just keep breaking our consciousness up and putting it in other vessels and different time or different dimensions, different time, whatever, until we get to where we're just so spread out, right? I mean,
and then there's the process of coming to acceptance and the fusing of beings back into it's cycles. It's a yo-yo back and forth. This growing and shrinking, growing and shrinking, growing and shrinking in every possible infinite.
I'm getting that. I'm totally getting that now. What's the possibility of 10 people that are walking the earth today are all part of the same consciousness?
Honestly, I'd say there's a good possibility. There's at least 3 separate entities as such.
Really? Can you name them?
I know that. Well, I know that 1 has been broken into 2 pieces for a while. 2 has been broken into 35 separate small fragments, and it's been feeling a little unbalanced and off because of it. 3 is in 9 separate parts because 3 broke itself into 3, and then those 3 broke themselves into 3. But fused back, it's beauty of things. You get what I'm saying?
No, I get it. I totally like, the more you talk about it, the more it's
down. There's the number varies. Each of those numbers have relevance to things and have meaning.
Does this code mean anything to you? 40909. Does it, off the top of your head, does it mean anything?
No.
Okay, that just came to me a couple days ago.
There's been too many humanoid species playing and running us, and it's all the same thing. I mean, most of the people you're going to see that have been living on Earth have either got the shit end of the stick, or they're one of the secret elite, and the secret elite will probably be never the person that you thought it was. The person that you thought it was, that's an innocent person just trying to be themselves that you're about to beat to death. The person that frickin' actually did do it is the one that's been setting up this whole time because somebody's been speaking out against them. I mean, these patterns that we keep going through over and over and over again. We keep hurting ourselves and breaking ourselves and trying again and hurting ourselves and breaking ourselves and controlling ourselves and changing ourselves. And the universe itself is a little bit too much of a control freak as a whole, is honestly how I feel. And it's needs to calm down just a hair and let things flow a little bit instead of trying to constrain everything into such tiny parameters. very specific parameters, and if it's not that, then it cannot exist within the universe without causing it extreme pain and changing everything just to cause such type situations.
Now, when you talk about the universe, are you talking about the specific one that we're in, and is it alive? Does it have a name other than universe as a live being?
That's there's so many answers to that question, and all of them valid, and there's too many to honestly count. This is the problem with. I sit omniversally. I sit in every possible universe and spectrum all simultaneously with a consciousness all directly connected into the physical self of this world. I guess there's a reason for that. And I've just been giving people information on spiritual levels, and or I'll happily, tell you about some of my past physical experiences and things I've had to go through.
Let's get more into that, because that's the part that really gets me excited. But before we get into that, so save that thought. Somebody told me I was a broken branch. Don't know what that means. What is your impression of that?
Well, that's the equivalent of what's on your shoulders. It's one of the branches of the tree of life. A branch is an entire universe. It's an entire spectrum. That's my world, my universe. Each of us has the capabilities of doing so, but it's how all of them interlace that kind of creates this outer realm. And whichever the willpower is strongest, or what the energy is most akin to, is what it will create. And we're all kind of sitting in the same space, not realizing it in a weird kind of way, with this flow of vibrations. It can do some internal damages. It's just not seen and taken care of. I'm sorry. There needs to be something that understands the universe so it can maintain and heal the universe, so it doesn't cause too much problems. I think that's something the universe desperately needs at this point, more
Oh
than
my God, say that again. Say it louder and clear. This just like rung a
the
bell.
universe needs something else other than itself to help it out and maintain it. I think the universe is losing its balance, just sitting alone, and things need to evolve and change, even if it means that one of us energies has to sacrifice ourselves to be that being on the outside.
Okay, well, let's go back to you. Now you look totally stoned, by the way. So
Sorry.
snap out of it. um, now let's go back to where you tell us your number again, and you actually
I
have
am
told me.
6.
Huh? Oh yeah. I always okay. So you're six. Six has a meaning. It's not just you're just not up there as a pseudo name,
No.
trying to disguise yourself. You're actually six. That's there's 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. You
7th incarnation in the order of events, and the 6th number. So
right, because
simple.
zero is actually like one. Zero is actually like the first being.
Zero is the first being, and then from 0, 1 created itself. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 36 main originals, and more being created simultaneously, constantly, just as the expansion of the universe goes, and until it gets to a point of shrinking, but the numbers still stay intact, and it continues to grow slowly
And
through
the
these.
tree of life, where's it rooted? Where did the tree of life sprout from?
Tree of life sprouted from eternity. It was a physical mass within the eternity itself. The energy, the momentum, the lights that you see in 2001: A Space Odyssey at the very end, as he's going through the space tunnel. That point in between. It's not that pure light energy world, but it came from mostly that. That pure light energy world is what Zero created. Almost feels like it's a dome. Is the best way to describe that place.
Oh, yeah. In
Big
fact,
white dome.
that dome, okay, so listen, that dome, there's actual pictures. If you Google the Tree of Life, there you can see that the roots are, there's like a plane, and then the roots are coming up this way, and then from the bottom of the plane, I'm sorry, the branches are coming up this way, and then from the bottom, the roots come that way, but it's in a dome. And is it kind of like, is that eternity, or is that dome that you're saying, is that just this universe? Is there multiple trees of life? I mean,
There is multiple trees of life, but there's only so many trees of life, and each tree of life is warping constantly, growing new ones, cutting them off, growing, changing, shaping, as only universe does through random chance, and chaos and growth and survival of the fittest, and this is happening omniversally in a sense, with each spectrum changing maybe the rules a little bit or an element slightly, but for the most part keeping the same, except for these main, but it's entirely different, which are actually from a different tree entirely. But there's only so many trees. You're on a branch of one of these trees. There's so many trees that you would think you're in a forest. You can't even see that all of them themselves are just tiny orbs of light.
um, so I was told, and like I always try to interject with my experiences when you talk about things, and that's how I know what you're saying is real, is because of all the experiences that I've had. And when you start talking about them, it helps me to understand those things clearer. And one of the things that I was told telepathically was basically, when shit hits the fan, and when we tell you, get back to the tree. And I do not know what that is. I'm thinking, tree of life. I don't know. I don't know if I'm the only one, which, okay, I know I'm not, but I know that there's some kind of communication going on with us from another dimension or another reality. I don't know if you want to call them guardian angels or higher spirits, but I get messages all the time, and I put them in my journal, and then I leave it there. I put a date and a time and everything, and I leave it there. And sometimes I go back and I reread this stuff, and I say, "Oh my God, this is happening today." It's almost like telepathically, I get these messages, and they always come out true. And so that was one of the things, was when shit hits the fan, when we tell you, you get back to the tree.
Get back to your roots. Get back to a tree. Could mean a lot of different things. If you're seeing it psychically, especially with you being connected to the Fae, maybe you'll end up finding a tree that is actually vibrating at a particular frequency, allowing you to actually portal through it because of a carving within it. And it's just within a particular ley line in the right fog with the right energy running through that fog. It's the only way that I could think of naturally for something like that to happen. Portals can open up within the physical world from place to place. We got
Well,
a little bit far from Atlantis now here.
yeah, well, let's get to Atlantis, because now you said Mars kind of were refugees here, which were kind of like the Egyptians, but before the Egyptians were the Atlanteans, right? And where did they come from? And tell me about Atlantis.
The Atlanteans were actually a particular type of reptiloid, which is kind of like a subspecies. Well, it's considered that, but I think they're the more evolved of the two. To be honest, so I think they're in the higher plane, but that's just me, not
The
counting the.
reptiloids, the Atlanteans.
Um, well, it was partially built by certain peaceful, intelligent species. They're coming in to learn more, coming to grow and teach because that's how they were. Um, they're able to move certain materials with their mind. Um, from my understanding, there was a force that happened to the universe around the time of Atlantis, and that's where all the people that were awake went during this major catastrophe that was happening to a universal scale. And what ended up happening is, they were using certain energies and sacrifices of certain types of energies to create barriers to defend themselves using the Merkaba itself, and they ended up just barely making it through. The city ended up sinking and barely surviving through the cataclysm that could have actually destroyed the omniverse as a whole. It was a very dangerous time and situation. And we might have to deal with another one of these types of things in the future. That is something that needs to kind of be awoken to everyone. We can't have this game of let's spend a few thousand years as slaves and then win our independence and then spend a few thousand years angry at each other until we freak out and destroy everything and then spend a few thousand more years as slaves on this never-ending cycle of we can't keep up this whole economy system, and everything's starting to fall apart just because of the collapse of, say, if we lost our computer systems, what would that do to people? A similar situation happened to the beings on here. There was the Martians, the Lyrans, and a couple other species. Most of them didn't actually really stay, and or they went underground and built some of the first main tunnels for the reptiloids.
Whoa.
Tech back when they used to roam the land, and it depends on when you're talking about too, because Atlantis rose and fell twice, actually.
What?
The second time it rose was actually a little more recently. They've kind of got it. It's sunk further, but it's still there. It's under the ice caps. That's why everybody's so obsessed with going there. That's where the real city lies. One of the only ways in is portal system, which you can get through Bermuda Triangle and or a few other places. Although there is actually gas there, and it is extremely dangerous. Sometimes that gas can cause the right spectrums, but it's like the difference between a wormhole and a black hole. You kind of got to pray for it, but sometimes it can send you in that space time spectrum instead of just complete and utter destruction.
When you say it's under the ice caps, is it the north or the south poles?
What's that one that they're always freaking going to? North Pole, I believe. No, it'd be south. It'd have to be south.
Yeah, the south, where like the Nazis and stuff are going.
Yeah, the different base. Yep.
They actually have Atlantis down there.
Mm-hmm.
That's crazy. What else goes on down there? I mean, what's it look like?
There's just numerous pyramids that predate our conception of this. They're from 2-3 cycles ago of mankind, birth and destruction that survived the flood, that survived the fire. There's a reason why they were building those cities. Not only were they space bases, they were supposed to be good defense stronghold. Everybody run in, set a stone by the door that was always set up just in case of attack. The situation is they hope their fighters would work it out. I mean, that technology did exist, and most of it was in Atlantis. When Atlantis ended up Wouldn't exactly say it sunk due to the energy of the situation that all got drawn into that area. Flash freeze, and ended up freezing things quicker than was scientifically possible because of the conversion of the energy itself into the air around it to try to stop an event from causing an explosion that would possibly destroy the fabric of the universe itself.
That's interesting. So it kind of froze. Are there giants or ancients or Anunnaki that are buried in the ice when that happened?
There's probably a lot buried down there. There's probably full civilizations. There was a couple bubbles in the ice that have been living in a controlled ecosystem, kind of like Venus had, but a little bit separate. The problem is, if that ever truly melted, it could create some very dangerous problems. The gas within the bubble that's underneath in some of those, created from whatever said event was or something else, if that environment that's been sitting there for so long burst through into ours, say our air swap, it would poison our air and we would kill all of them instantly. The two would mix together and create it's the danger of somebody that breathes oxygen going to another planet. And what happens when your oxygen mixes with their equivalent of oxygen? The chemical bond changes entirely and it's death for them both.
So history has sold us a bad rap on Atlantis. It's not what they say it is.
There was a major cataclysmic universal event that caused a lot of universal chaos, and it ended up sinking under the sea and then freezing over instantly. Yeah, that sounds about right.
Oh, okay. So, but they're trying to say that it's in the northern hemisphere, but it's really in the southern.
It's the only thing that makes sense. I mean, they even have maps that I've seen of the world where it's showing details of continents that we've only gotten through satellites. How would they know from a giant sheet of ice what that looks like underneath ice caps and things like that? I mean, there's pyramids in Alaska they don't even know about, in
Wow.
certain secluded areas in different places of the world that that have information that contradict another or something else, because it's numerous places got visited by these same similar beings, and it's how each one interpreted them and what they were doing and what it turned into, which created a lot of different religions throughout these centuries.
When I was passing through Phoenix, when I go through Phoenix, there's the university there, and there actually is a hill that looks like a pyramid that their stadium is built into. And could it be possible that there's pyramids in Phoenix, Arizona? Or there
Yeah,
was a pyramid?
yes.
I mean, anything's possible, right? And then you've heard about the ant people or something that lived in the Grand Canyon. What do you know about those?
Oh, I know that there is an insect-like species that aren't quite, I wouldn't say ants. I'd say they're a mix of, they have eyes like Mothman or praying mantis. They glow red. Some of them have the capability of flight. They're in intelligent humanoid insect, pretty much, which they're another species. They're also native.
Oh, they're native.
They're lesser. They're more of a tribe that's been given the upper hand by. It's one of the things the reptiloids took in and went, "You're not going to be alone, buddy." Type of situation, from my understanding, because there's also two other native species that live entirely underground, and they're very very similar, I believe. and there's one that's like a fatter humanoid that has like a tiny elephant trunk for a nose. And they're an actual species that live on this planet in certain underground caverns that are created. Actually, the tech they use on most reptiloids is they have a special acid that they'll spray into a room, and it will eat away the stone, specifically designed to do so, eat away the stone within a certain area or within a certain shape. They can all do it with, here I go in, I do the tech, and then it eats it away, and then becomes inert.
Um, that's so crazy. That's so crazy. What about Native Americans and specifically Northern Native Americans? They have a lot of petroglyphs and things in their caves, and in there they have a lot of like the insectoid looking figures.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think that those interacted with who are the Native Americans and how did they get here? I mean, do you know? Did they really migrate over from, the like they say they came up from China or the Siberian and come over that landmass and
Well,
land
I
here?
couldn't exactly tell you at which cycle. When it comes down to it, most of us humanoids here, all come from. Here's the original research. They took some of it, they recreated it, it changed. They turned from leather neck. We started with strong, thick leather necks on a different planet entirely to more of a little bit slimmer of the neck and bigger heads than we had before. Then we went and increased intelligence. We've always kind of been upright. We varied in height. We've changed in psychic abilities, but it's all kind of grown and different slight variants, mostly based off of placement on planet where they were, can change skin tone, but they're all from the same base species. So it's like, different variants. And there's certain parts of the same species that have been evolving on different planets in space simultaneously with us here that weren't a part of, hey, look, this is the control group that we're going to change genetically and make our slaves. This is the one that we go in and give them a chance to grow and be, They fought it in space, and we were the unlucky ones that. And then we're stuck in this petri dish, which is controlled half and half by one galactic empire over here that's probably going to try to figure out how to show their presence to us and enlist us for some war to defend new nations if we can put the nukes away. And or we're going to continue to be these lab rats until they just come in and clean up because it's been tampered with too much, and it'd be the more humane option.
So, what I'm kind of seeing right now and sensing is we are just a big experiment with all different DNA, and they're just trying to create all these different species throughout the years, the multitude of years. And are some of us being taken off base to other planets to repopulate these places like Mars because they've devastated these other places?
Well, in some cases, yes. And certain species, that's just kind of how they've always functioned. They've been the type of, okay, then we don't want to get our hands dirty. We don't want to create robots because then it creates the AI conundrum, which I think is our scariest future. So they'll end up genetically making a, slave race. Hey, we can control these dum-dums, be friends with them. And once, make it seem like, oh, no, we were helping you, not enslaving you, until they finally give up and be like, okay, you're one of your own. You want to help us get this new species and do the same thing? It just depends on how they decide to do it, whoever is doing it in the individual casing. Some think they have divine right over others because it's their property in a sense. if they were told that, even though they have no concrete proof over it, which has been some of the problems with galactic politics for a while now.
Galactic politics, yeah. So where are we headed? I mean, do we only have one option now? Because I remember at some point there was supposed to be different timelines, but where are we at now? Or do we have any options? Or do we need to do anything? Or what's going on?
Well, I'm not getting any intel on that. It seems like things are. It hasn't come to true harmonious convergence yet, even though it was supposed to already, which is very strange. And the reason why is the table, so to speak, is spinning. The energy is so off balance that it's chasing his head and hasn't rounded itself back out to, a stable plate.
So we're supposed to be going to some kind of harmonic, or would you say harmonic
convergence?
Convergence. What's that?
Well, it's kind of a point of the mind wakes up a little bit more, and that can have some side effects depending on where you wind up due to the fact of such. The more awake you are now, before is the better off you are after.
Say that again.
The better off, the more awake you are now, the better off you'll be after the initial. But at the same time, it could be considered a curse.
Yeah.
Knowing full information, being able to relay it and create it into something that you can use viably into a physical reality that is created by the manifestation of all the beings within it constantly.
Right. Yeah, that part I get. But I mean, this harmonic convergence, it's people need to wake up so that something happens. What is that?
It could be two dimensions fusing. It could be a point to where
that makes a lot of sense. So we've got to raise our vibration so that we go and we merge with a higher vibration, which kind of pulls us out of the gutter, so to speak, right?
Yeah.
That makes a lot of sense. So do you think that there's people that have already raised their vibration to where they're actually merging, like bringing up humanity and helping us to even merge at higher levels? And are there people constantly bringing up the slack in different, kind of where are we at on that level?
You've got kind of a 60-40 balance right now. You got 40% of the universe in whole trying to heal and grow itself. And you got the 60%, really, it's 50% going, fuck it. I've been through enough, fuck it. That has a whole vibe. And the other 10 is, I don't know.
A lot of lost people are just lost, don't know what to do.
About 10% of all energies.
What happens to those? What happens to those consciousness? Do they decide to just evaporate?
No, that's not quite how it works. I mean, energy is something that, unless you have the appropriate situation, cannot be created nor destroyed. It takes the amount of energy it would create to create a new energy. It would take all energies in the known universe to all manifest that same exact goal. Poof, that's new. That's its child. It's grown. To create that new energy, in truth, it takes the use of all energy. And the same way to destroy it, just in the opposite spectrum.
What just came to my mind, and this is brilliant, and I want to say this show, it's getting better and better. I'm just understanding more. And what I just had a picture of is, you know how you said that some of the energies have broken off so many times, and like yourself, you actually exist in a lot of different universes or realities at the same time. Now, it's almost like having being a fisherman and having a fishing line and all these different realities and trying to pull them back in to become whole. And you're going to have stragglers, some that just don't want to come back. But you can't just cut the line and let that go. You're going to constantly keep pulling that one line back in, right? Because that wholeness relies on those stragglers and can't completely go up further unless you pull in those stragglers, right?
Well, that depends. There's cases if there's enough of the mass, it will still go through. And even if there are those stragglers that get left behind, they're just left behind to be in that energy spectrum for the next go round, and will eventually cycle through into a time to where they're all complete. Circumstance will make it to where here, with the different parts of the energy as it flows through lifetime, body through body, constantly, flowing as the experience, but living in the moment, like we are conversating now in that specific spectrum. Even though both are happening simultaneously, they both are relevant in the conversation here. They're both relevant to as spectrums of time. One is your soul's sense of time, which I guess in a sense, there is an age to a soul. There is how long it burns out before it dies, and normally is rebirthed like a phoenix itself. So even the soul itself has those cycles. Who knows if there's an end to those cycles at this point, but they themselves do happen as well, just like the death and birth of a universe instantaneously is the source of our very being, that creation.
Is it safe to say that we're all in tow to our higher selves, or our core, or our root essence? We're kind of all in tow. We're always connected by that line.
They can be cut off and smudged and converted into other things. Everything's an individual by individual basis. Just from the true meaning of that means that there's going to be situations to where, nope, that's not going to happen, or that happens like this instead, or this instead, or this instead, constantly. There's a number of that for individual in the entire omniverse, because sometimes even just certain choices differing can change the type of person you're going to become, say, on that spectrum. Because even though you're living the individual life you're in for the first time, it's based off a similar thing you've already went through, similar paths, because we're going through similar energy phases. Even though this may be the first time you're in this physical vessel, doesn't mean you can't have a deja vu and have literally lived a similar moment in time before that moment.
So let's go back to you and how you are basically in a lot of different realities right now. Go take off on that again.
Well, my actual essence in the universe is the essence of insanity. It's knowledge. It's been my job since the beginning of my conception to not note everything down for the omniverse. In a sense, God's personal notebook that became sentient and knows all his secrets.
Oh my gosh.
Why are you hurting me so? being able to see things as they truly are, going, it's not as pretty and sunshine as you think. There's times to where God and the devil are the same person. But then again, both the title of God and the devil are both, in a sense, positions. It's head honcho in charge of the multiverse at that time, as the energies constantly flow, as the concept of God itself would be the being that all of us are this, the inner workings of. We are the inner workings of that being that is zero.
So you have access to all that knowledge, and is it your job to make sure that the accuracy is getting out there?
I try to write things down whenever for as long as I've been around, I've copied things exactly as they were said, exactly as I saw. So yeah, parts of the record are going to be a little fudged, because have you ever had those moments where you speak something differently than, say, it physically happened?
Yeah,
The white lies and things, even for the longest time, it was whatever was said happened to me. Whatever was jotted down, the victory rights, whoever wins the war gets to decide the information, is still prevalent to that in the early days, until I started jotting down both sides. And even then, I tried to look for every perspective I could, and I've gone completely mad in doing so.
And so what do we need to do now? What is, do we each have an individual mission, or are we all still working on a bigger plan for, all of humanity in all the different universes,
Our best bet for evolution at this point of a spiritual nature is to get circuitry. By that I mean get certain situations to be created to create certain types of energy to get this computer working. Say, you have all these people lined up, but they're lined up in the wrong spots. Well, it's not going to work the same as if you get them in that perfect symmetry and circuitry to create these massive geometrical shapes and patterns that create more power, with getting down to the raw basics of the universe, like mathematics and things like that. And once you get that circuitry spiritually with our connections with each other, like this person connected this person, is the perfect catalyst to continue and grow, even though we're surrounded by all of them. If we're able to get certain things like that working, at least on numerous dimensional spectrums, it can change up everything as a whole. It might even be able to create it to where we can have eternal vessels, able to change their shape and not have to worry about such constraints as food, water, oxygen. Just by reimagining and inventing the essence of matter itself.
So I had this vision, and I wrote it down. I had it several years ago, and I was at the ocean, like standing on the beach looking towards the ocean, and I started seeing this big tsunami come, a huge tsunami, and it was red. And as I turned to run back towards, inland, I looked up, and there was Chinese paratroopers coming down, floating down. But I didn't really pay attention to them. I just ran, and I jutted as fast as I could up these stairs that just kept going around and around and around and around, up the side of a mountain. Multiple levels of stairs and platforms. And there was people in front of me. They almost looked like cartoonish, but people were running up these stairs. And when we got to the very, very top, there was no more stairs to go up. We all kind of just turned around and looked, and the water had come up, the red water had come up, and it was right under our feet. So it had, the water had raised to right under our feet. And to me, that kind of is like what's happening right now. You know, people have to raise their vibration, or I don't know what, go up the DNA or raise. What is this? What do you think this has to do with today and what's happening today?
Well, we spent a long time stopping ourselves from spiritually ascending. Anybody that gains the ability to affect the universe in any shape or form, or says something contradictory to what's written in certain texts and things, they've been witches, they've been killed off, they've been treated horribly. Anyone that's either able, even if it's just healing in some cases, people were able to spiritually heal and literally set bones in place and do surgeries back in medieval times without freaking tech or things, literally just with energy, and would save people from knife wounds and things with just that. Some of those cases, they were burned. We've been blinding ourselves generation after generation to the ability or even the belief that any of these things are even possible whatsoever. And it creates way too.
Well, I kind of made an analogy to what was going on today, this moment. And I saw the red wave as the whole Trump red wave, make America great again. They just kept talking about this red wave. And I see that whole liberation of people like fighting for their rights and waking up is helping them to ascend. At, even if it's right at the 11th hour, people have to ascend. And at the same time is when, you know, China is coming in, the threat of China invading on us. I feel like it's happening as we speak, this moment.
The whole thing is it went overboard. Yeah, Trump tells you to rush the White House. I guess people did it, but there's been a lot of reasons why we should have rushed the White House, and it shouldn't have been to attack or kill anybody in there. No, it's figuring out who's been really in charge of the fucking
Yes.
place for all this time, who's really printing our money, having a separate company that doesn't have to adhere to American government standards.
Yep.
And they're the ones printing our money as a separate subsidiary company, allowed more freedoms than anyone else, as our rights are secretly sold off to other countries to try to back the money we don't have. And that's why China's coming in. We are owned by them and other nations that we are indebted to for
Yes.
money we have
Yes.
printed does not exist, that has been circulated throughout the planet, and they want to collect debt, not knowing how, knowing these companies and subsidiaries are the ones that fucked us up. Us as a people are probably going to freak out, riot, and kill the wrong people and do more damage. Instead of fixing a problem, we're going to freak out and let them get away with it again.
Yes. Well,
We're going
yeah.
to freak out and they're going to profit from us tearing ourselves to shambles, and this is what they've done to us purposely. It's sad, but it's the fucking truth. They have hated us. They've been trying to brainwash us, tear us down, change our inert instincts, lie to our faces, feed us chemicals, treat us like shit, enslave us, track us, watch us. They hate us. They want it to where we're building pyramids again for some alien species they made a deal with. Type situations. These groups which you call the Illuminati, but all the people that are part of the Illuminati are still talking to people higher up that have been secretly running the chains, because it's just like Area 51. Ooh, looky here. It doesn't exist. It doesn't exist. You all pay attention to this. Everything's been going on in the background. And that's just that's their weakest link. That's the one thing they could get rid of and cut off at a moment's notice and go, what are you talking about? that never existed. These are the same people that have been running us for thousands of years, these same families that have been intelligent enough to fuck with us, used our resources against us. They're the ones been controlling our media. They want us to disbelieve everything. They want us to freak out completely. They want us to civil war in the streets, kill each other off. There's too many of us for them to be able to control. And they want to come in and start controlling on the masses.
Mm-hmm.
They've been planning it for a long time, so they're trying to set up these dominoes to where they tumble down one of us, and boom, we're killing each other off, causing fires in the streets and freaking out, going after the wrong individuals just because of a misconception. You misunderstand a situation and people die unnecessarily as they laugh and make more money.
Yes, they take all our money. No, you can't win money-wise. I have a question, and then we'll go ahead and wrap it up. And you were mentioning how like, for instance, the witches and things, and how they burned them all at the stake. What would happen by now if they wouldn't have came after the indigenous people and the witches? And wasn't there they went off, they went after certain peoples? What would happen?
That had information or proof that was against the main particular group that was using control, which at the time was the Catholic Church. They came in and killed off all information about anything that predated Cradle of Life, God.
So we would have had that information.
The history
Right?
is older than that, but the Bible is at the same time. It is relevant. It is a history book explaining that's the history of this time, from the birth of this time onward. That's the whole Bible.
So what I'm picturing is, had they not killed off all of the people with the original information, we would have been way more woke up. I mean, weren't we woke up back then? They keep trying to put us back to sleep by killing all the woke people.
Yep.
Doesn't that make us in danger right now? And number two, are they don't really want us to all wake up so that we merge into other dimensions, because then what? They get cut off and they're just stuck with themselves? Or what happens to them when we wake up and merge?
We're food. We are food. Why take away my source of anger? Why take away my source of love or lust or this emotion or this emotion or this sin or this thing? Why would I ever cut that off? I've been a bottom feeder, darkness being forever, blah, blah, blah. No. Keep them here. I like food.
Yes.
They're predators and prey. It's.
But aren't they the ones that create the wormholes and the dimensions and things?
It's all symbiotic. I mean, from the experiences of both of them existing, certain states of matter are more closer to the primordial clay, which is more of an energy. It's what the energy condensing first starts shaping a form as. The clay that they say man is made of is the same clay that everything's made out of. It's just different colored clay, each color representing a different raw state of like emotion and turning into different forms of energy.
So then isn't there like two factions that are changing our DNA to make us wake up and more godlike, and then there's another faction that want to dumb us down and keep us stupid? Who are the ones that are helping us? Are they the light beings and the Pleiadians? Are they activating us or helping us to wake up?
Well, technically, if you would consider by galactic standards, terrorists are the ones helping us. They would be considered ego terrorists trying to strengthen the system and destroy an oppressed system. There's been
Gotcha.
numerous problems with them, while at the same time they're literally fighting a war with reptiloid beings which claim right to hear, and they want to use this as a food source. So that's no fun. I mean, they kind of want to do it out of spite, but still, that's no fun. And
So this whole
the
draining
ones
the
trying to
swamp.
mess with us are just, it's commonly these same families, and or the two groups I know of inside up there is you got the council and you got the legion. Legion is pretty much your conglomerate that is, we're trying to make all one. We're trying to create complete control. They're the ones that have been truly being like, okay, then God says to do this, and you go and do it. They're different organizations that like to use that power against the people. They've used it in ways of even cults, and sometimes. And the council is the conglomerate of the people that kind of accept what the Legion are doing and have their own somewhat agenda that all vote for what they decide to do, although the highest ranking member has full say and can even veto the entire group. It's weird politics.
So they're trying to wake us up to what's going on with those factions up there. You know, that was before that was considered the
We couldn't handle certain things.
right.
It would cause too many problems. It would cause too much pain. And
But now that information is all coming forward to where people are going to know that there's good factions and bad factions that are trying to keep us down or trying to help us. And don't you think that we should be aligning with the people that are trying to help us? Aren't we trying to seek out the ones that are trying to help us?
well, even if they're trying to help us, some of the ones trying to help us are actually doing more harm than they realize, and just the ways they're keeping us down. Also, the sheer fact that both sides are trying to mess with genetics, it's going to create some major damages to all beings on the planet as a whole, as the ecosystem slowly changes due to the said factors of mutations.
Right. Mark, they're creating the divide. Like they're right. They're okay. So there's supposedly good beings and dark beings. They're genetically they're genetically altering humanity to be
They're trying to
good
do it
or bad.
spiritually and physically. They're trying to be like, you're separate now. They want everything, instead of us all races like slowly fusing into one, and looking something like, look, I live in Brazil. Brazil is a great example. If it slowly mix everything, that's what it's going to turn into. Instead of that, they want it to, okay, here's the darker skin and lighter skin people, as they like to use. Here's this religion or this religion. Okay, you have something slightly different. You're rivals. You have issues with each other. Let's feed on that tension. Okay, now you just killed each other as you sit back laughing and you reap the rewards.
So the good ones, let's call them the light factions or whatever. You said that they were actually creating more trouble.
If anyone is doing genetics, well, both sides are doing genetics on us, which is going to cause a major problem in our future once we start literally changing into what we've been eating genetically, and it's really, really bad. I mean, we're not going to feel it for a very long time, but if our species lasts the long haul, we're going to be at a point to where we're clones, we can't reproduce, and by the age of like 50, our cells start to degrade and we start mutating into weird amalgamations of flesh.
Oh, okay. So this is all making sense. And so what we need to do as individuals, because they're never going to stop messing with our DNA, we need to be coherent enough to realize what the grand plan is and to start kind of taking matters into our own hands. Stop relying on somebody else to come and save us. that kind of thing. And what I'm suggesting is that we tune into our own soul beings and what we're supposed to do, and really take off on our what we feel our gut is telling us. And even though, like I said, a lot of us are confused. So the people that are now trying to lead others by making them become more aware and by waking them up. Do you think this is going to be like a third faction that like groups together and now we are the ones?
Well, from my understanding, everything kind of flows into four main factions. I talked about the Legion. I talked about the Council. There's also the players. Those are the people that they don't exactly want to destroy or control. They're the ones that are going to try to lightly profit off of things and strategize for the best for themselves while at the same time others. And the resistance is going to literally be the types of people that will literally stop there and fight for every single individual. No man left behind. Just the force of a lot of those mobs will be the type of groups that the resistance would be, in a sense. And these are four parts of the coin that I've seen.
The resistance.
Every coin.
The resistance, yeah.
Your in your innards. And it's that innards that people forget about. Most people don't even realize the rims aside too.
So the Vatican has a lot of the information and they've been hiding from the people.
They're trying to implement the existence of the ETs. From what I heard, what they want to do is have the Pope come up with an actual ET. Here's our brothers and sisters from the stars. And I mean, very possible. I mean,
but aren't they going to be the fake ones, or are they going to be the real ones? Are they trying to put a fake reality? Because most people are.
They're not going to do a fake reality. They're the literal. They're trying to integrate actual alien species onto Earth. They're as real as you or I, without causing wars or freak out. Part of what's been going on with this virus is actually, hey, here's the most common diseases of this alien species. Let's give it to you before they quote unquote show up. So by the time they do, the mass don't freak out over the fact of, hey, we all just got sick and they came here. Those aliens got us sick. Kill them. Freak out. Because a lot of these races are peaceful.
Yeah.
They're not take your brains. They're scared, timid little guys, and or just another fellow humanoid or something like that. And I could see us very biased and prejudiced against certain alien species that are some of the most peaceful because they look not as they look a little scarier. I mean, there's cases of us doing that already on Earth. I remember hearing this one species crash landed, and they ended up writing on these discs, which can be played on a very specialized machine using gym tech. You add electricity to them, and it has a computer system that's able to read it, and it tells of how humans came in and killed them after they crash landed and tried to be peaceful.
Wouldn't you say that the true history of all the years gone by is what the people need the most?
I think what people need most is to slowly integrate into the acceptance of some of these extra-dimensional and extraterrestrial beings existing and be able to live simultaneously with them, or else we're going to be horrible monsters.
Okay, so what you're saying is we need to fuse with other dimensions and other beings. We kind of need to cut this reality off.
No. This is going to happen in our physical reality. Some of these beings are coming from a planet that's dying. There's numerous species coming to this planet as refugees, and it's kind of inevitable. So they're trying to figure out a way to do it without causing complete destruction and chaos, and or they're going to use this and go, okay, everybody kill each other, freak out. here's this excuse, this excuse, this excuse, this excuse.
Well, let's kind of go back a little bit, just so I can understand a little bit better. You said what we need to do is to say that again.
Get to a point where we can accept some of these, extra dimensional, extraterrestrial beings coming to our physical reality, that not all of them are evil. In fact, a good
Oh my
portion of
God.
them are
Okay.
peaceful. So we're not killing off some intergalactic saints that really just
Yeah.
need a place to crash for a minute and fix their ship type situations.
But they're not necessarily here to help us. You're saying that we need to befriend them, so possibly what?
I'm
Accept
saying
them.
we should be friend with them so we don't be monsters. Because I could see human beings killing them off for the fun of it. Imagine you've been in space for a long time, you and your species, and you just like us.
So
Same
we
sort
need to
of
open our
mind,
arms.
just slightly different tech. It's going to be hard for a lot of people to realize that, and yeah, there's going to be people naturally scared. I think those people should give warning. Hey, I'm not comfortable right next to it. I might freak out, but I'm not going to go hunt it down.
Okay.
There's going to be a variety of different people when the situation happens. I mean, even if that information that they have been to Earth and commonly do comes out, how are we going to take it? I mean, they had to change time when JFK told the truth and go back and assassinate him. Legitimately, that they had to change the time structure because people locked themselves inward and destroyed themselves, creating another post-apocalypse by the year 2000 in another spectrum. Funny as that.
So you think that opening portals and things is good? Or is that like,
It depends on how it's done. It's a natural part of the universe, so it's meant to exist. But there is a spectrum and a balance to things, and with so many beings that have been manipulating the universe for so long, especially things like the time paradoxes and things, it's created some major damages that is constantly being flowed. It's why we're all flowing into this one universe, one singular universe for the entire omniverse, this one glowing light.
is that what they call a singularity? So let me get this clear. So you have, just for an example, you have people like Aleister Crowley that did a ritual in over there by Loch Ness, and supposedly opened a portal and then didn't close it, and supposedly let in some dark entities. Now, was that based on the ritual that attracted the type of entity? And if so, because we all know that those were not good ones that he brought in, are we supposed to be on the other side opening up portals for the lighter, the more, beneficial beings to come through?
Take it from an ex-summoner. You could bring a being in to destroy the entire world, and it could come in and teach the world something new. And that's all it ever does. There could be angels that come in and destroy. Just because you open a door to something doesn't mean you know its intent. It just means you're able
Right.
to connect it directly using its name and certain rituals connected to. There's what it's known for, and there's what it truly is. And a lot of the times that information doesn't get recorded for a lot of these higher dimensional beings, sick of us mortals crap, viewing us like tiny little children going, hey, what do I do with it? As we are trying to open doorways to say hi.
So we could be just creating more of a mess.
Yes.
Because quite frankly, we don't really know what we're doing, do we?
We can naturally do a lot of things, but it
So
doesn't mean we have true grasp or understanding. I mean, I've summoned beings into the physical world. Spiritual beings, I've brought them forth physically just by changing their vibration and condensing them down to where they were leaving claws in concrete and had to be vanquished. That's why I
So are
stopped doing
you,
it. I've created damage.
you think people are more obsessed with bringing in darker energies, and that's what, is that helping the dark side, the swamp?
People are obsessed with this idea of it's seductive to be part of true destruction. It's a misconception. You want to destroy everything and live in the know. It's a long, boring existence. But first, you have to destroy everything you've ever loved. You get rage and anger and hate. And, if the whole universe is on that anger and rage, energy can only be created or destroyed if all energies in the universe are simultaneously going towards the same thing. What happens when both sides are meaning to kill each other?
So how should we wrap up this session? I mean, you said that we need to accept the refugees and the other interdimensionals and things that are coming.
I think the best thing we can do right now is take baby steps, do some mind things, try to grasp the idea of, and try to figure out a world that you would be okay in living, knowing that they're there, they're neighbors, but the most you're going to have is a conversation with them, or maybe get some tech from them, or maybe see them in town and eat a meal with them, depending on whether or not you're comfortable with that. And that's going to be life someday. And these beings have existed here for longer than we know. And the big problem is, what happens when all the people that lied to us for so long are gone, and the people that have been in charge have been trying to keep up with it, and they themselves go, I don't know how to tell the world this, but I don't want to keep it up anymore. That's where the higher ups are right now. Even they're going, how?
They're tired too, aren't they?
Everybody's sick of this. Everybody. We got to find a new balance. A new world that doesn't require complete slave control through computers and nanotechnologies. Or I'd rather have a world that's truly free for all beings to grow spiritually, physically, emotionally, to where we help each other and strongly believe into each their own, as long as we don't harm anybody else. I'd love to be in a universe to where, even though we have those conflicts, we can find other means that work for the individuals and the situation in order to find a solution to, instead of getting the whole world into specific problems and such and things.
Well,
At this point, I think the best thing we can do is say, have a wonderful night, y'all. I have a lot to talk about.
yeah, I think this was a really good talk. And I just want to say thank you again for sharing your incredible knowledge. And we'll keep doing this until we just feel like we're so saturated, and really hope that people can digest it. And then where do we go from there? I mean, we'll talk about it. All right. So let's wrap it up, and you have a good night.
You as well.
We'll see you next time. Thanks everyone for watching and tuning in.